Hello, hello everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. I am joined by Beyond. It's just a two-man show today, but that's okay. I'm not alone. And if so, the show must go on, as it has in the past and will until it is not. So, we have a few things to talk about. First of all, NBA playoffs. We're definitely going to talk about the upcoming second round matchups. As we're talking right now, there is a game going on, which will help determine what is going on in the second round. But I think Beyond and I have a feeling of who it's going to be. But we'll talk about both instances of, if A, then that. If B, then that. What we're also going to talk about is briefly give more details about the NBA new media TV deal. Because as that comes out, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. Finally, and we're actually going to do this in reverse order, but last but not least, because we're going to do it first, we're going to talk about the events this weekend in terms of Canadian basketball, because we had a WNBA game in Edmonton. And there's a few people that at least I know, I don't know if you know anyone that went, but there's a few people that definitely went to the game. And it was, I think, a big deal, especially it being a preseason game. So let's start off. Did you happen to catch any of, I believe it was the Sparks versus the Storm yesterday?
Yeah, I watched. I pretty much watched the entire game. I mean, there was
Hmm.
something that was on ice that was keeping my attention as well too.
Yes.
I won't get to that. Oh man, I feel warm and fuzzy about that. Anyhow, I'll move on from that for that sport at the moment. But
Right.
I would say this: it was a good game. As you know, I mean, it's preseason games. Their first preseason game for both teams. A lot of star power. So there's a lot of storylines to watch. Right? It was like Skylar Diggins and Agumake now joining Seattle to see how they would mesh together with Lloyd. And then also on
The
the other side,
Canadian Kia Nurse.
I was about to say Kia Nurse coming to LA, and then also too you had the two rookies in this case as well to see how they were doing, Jackson and of course Brink. So there was stuff to watch in this case here, and honestly, I didn't even realize this. The coach for Seattle is the assistant coach for the Canadian national basketball team. So
That I
that's
did not know.
yeah, so that's another nice little angle. In this case, she will be that Noel in this case. So lots of stuff and lots of different storylines, and then of course the biggest storyline that we're going to discuss is Canadian basketball and women's Canadian basketball, and if the momentum seems to be churning towards a WNBA team in Toronto.
Well,
They are not
well,
even trying to hide it on the TSN coverage. I mean, from Kayla Gray to everyone else in between. Heck, Kia in the interviews before, during, and after.
yeah.
So I mean, sold out crowd, over 16,000 change in Edmonton. You said you have some folks. I'd love to get their thoughts on what they thought about the.
Maga's won, so he'll be on the podcast at some point again soon.
Okay, yeah. It seemed like a great crowd, really excited. It made me start thinking, do Canadian basketball get greedy and try to look for two franchises at some point? Because I do
Yeah.
wonder if that's possible for the West to get a team.
Yeah, and I think they would. Well, I mean, we'll see because the NBA has a tricky relationship with it. But Vancouver would be nice to have a team in theory. Over no offense to Calgary or Edmonton, but
I
let's
think if
keep
you
it
look at
real.
the Alberta team, it's Edmonton likely, right?
Yeah, well, it might be Calgary. It might be just because of the population wise, it
True.
can more easily support it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking from the standpoint of like there's big oil in both cities, but I'm just looking from
True,
the perspective like Edmonton seems to have more grassroots when it comes to basketball, women's basketball in particular, than
that's fair.
Calgary. It's more of a natural. It seems to be. And same thing with the soccer side. It seems like they're also very big when it comes to soccer for men's and women's. So I mean, they had the game when it was in the snow. It was in Edmonton actually, right? If I recall.
Right.
Right, the World Cup qualifying game. To me, it seems like I think Edmonton also lost out. Well, there might be politics behind that. I'll just leave that alone. When it came to the World Cup and ended
Yep.
up going to Kansas City, I'll leave that alone. But they were in the running. If it was going to be the Alberta team, it seemed like it was or Alberta venue. It was going to be Edmonton more than Calgary. So I think I wouldn't dismiss Edmonton. Is what I'm saying. I agree. Vancouver seems to be the most natural thing, and it does kind of backdoor your way for you Vancouver folks for an NBA team. Just saying.
I think that that's part of the reason why, because it's like,
Right.
because like if you're looking long term and
Yes.
you want an NBA franchise in Vancouver again, or on the West Coast in Canada specifically, it's probably not going to be in Calgary.
No.
No
No.
offense to
No.
Calgary
No. I mean, the thing is, I do only
or
wonder.
Edmonton as well,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. I just wonder. I mean, it happened before, and there's no problems. That market in that area better than me, obviously. And I think like we knew they supported three teams. It didn't seem to have any issue from attendance and viewership standpoint with Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland. I think the same thing. I mean, right now the MLS has all three markets. So right now, right, I think any other team right now, I think right now that's the only league that has all three markets. Hockey has two of the three. And I know Portland sniffed around for an NHL team for a minute and kind of disappeared. So who
Yeah,
knows?
there's few sports or there's few markets that actually can handle multiple, major league sports. Toronto is one of them.
Yes, yes. And Vancouver is another one. I just thinking
Yes.
about the standpoint of the market in that area from a population standpoint.
Hmm.
If there's enough for three, that's all I'm thinking. Because that was always the issue. It's kind of the issue with here with hockey. You have a second team here. Can it be placed in Hamilton? How does that
Right.
impact Sabres fans, Leafs fans, so on? So it's more that is the issue more than anything else. And MLS has proven that it seems like it is viable. The NBA in the past proved that it's viable. So Vancouver fans, keep your heads up. You never know. So who knows? But overall, I think right now the WNBA in my mind, I think it's almost a given with the next 2 years, Toronto will have a team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, there's too much there's too much momentum
yeah,
to I think stop that train,
yeah.
um,
Now
and it'll happen.
there is one element that could slow down the train, which then leads to our next discussion.
Real estate.
Well, real estate is called, since Toronto, any Canadian team of market doesn't really help impact numbers for a US based company. If you're
Right.
trying to sell that now to a deal for a new TV deal, in this case, the WNBA, you already have the Bay Area coming on board. Do you get more pop to say, hey, I have a team in, say, Philadelphia, for example, than Toronto when you now have your new deal coming up in the next 12 months?
Well, the
Or just
interesting
coming up
thing.
right now in this case here.
Well,
If you know this, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Right? If you go to your media partner and say, hey, man, we're going to have a team in Philadelphia literally next year, now don't get me wrong. If you're looking at a deal for like 10 years, 11 years, it won't matter from
Well,
that
I was
standpoint.
also going to say, just from the standpoint of who also owns the TV rights and who you'd be making that deal with.
Mm, mm, right. Exactly. Right. I'm just saying, I guess, from a standpoint of
Because
like,
Rogers, may not want to sign up.
I think Rogers looking for content. I think they would have, it would be ideal for them, especially in the summertime.
True.
Because let's face it, I mean, sports
I
get
thought
people.
that they were all about concerts, right? So I'm just trying to.
Well, I'm just saying from a standpoint of the summertime, I mean, like if I recall, and tell me if I'm wrong, Sportsnet has all the rights to the Blue Jays games, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Although that's a Rogers only owned.
exactly. So that's where they would even be in play in my mind. Because I think it would be TSN who's pushing this, of course. They would have exclusive rights because that would be essentially their team, in
Right.
my mind. So that's where I think that where the action would happen from that perspective. Um, yeah, so I mean, it does dovetail nicely into your second topic.
Yes,
'Cause,
TV deal rights. And by the way, score update as we're watching this. Score is tied. But TV deal rights. Yeah, so as the numbers are rolling in, the last TV deal was about 25 billion to 26 billion dollars over the course of uh, I believe a decade, so 10 years. And so far, the NBA is looking to add both more players as well as a streaming partner. They're looking to be more publicly available as a service or product to their people. So they're looking to get on, sorry if I get this wrong, on broadcast, I think. And they are on cable right now with ESPN and Warner Bros. Through their subsidiary TNT. And that's how it's kind of presented in many ways, except for the local deals. I'm not going to get into the local deals and all that kind of stuff. We will talk about it at some day in full when all of the numbers are kind of out there and in play. But right now, it seems like at least Walt Disney, so I guess ESPN, as well as Amazon alone, have already basically have frameworks for deals and short of, popping the champagne bottle because the deal is being done. They are still negotiating the deal, but there's enough out there to kind of assess what it is. So those deals alone are 2.6 billion and 1.8 billion dollars for Amazon. And as you and I were discussing right before this, the Amazon deal may actually end up being a little bit more when all is said and done, when the final numbers are actually given. So with that being said, there's also another player, which is that they are looking to potentially, I don't know if replace is the correct term, but they're looking at shifting their uh, product towards a maybe a company or a partner that is better at public facing. So,
Yeah.
and I know you probably like how I put that too.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
very kind and gentle in this case here. I think there's a few elements
Hey, if
that
there's ever a time, if there's ever a chance that I'll be on TV, this is why.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very concerned about that, man. That is not in my future. Let's put it that way.
So I did the a little bit of the number crunching, and you're looking at a 2.7 times increase in terms of revenue per year when all is said and done. Even though the numbers aren't fully, they're getting close because
Mhm.
NBC is looking at as well $2.55 billion approximately. So you're basically, going way almost three times the amount that the former deal was worth, and that is exactly what they were looking for, and when
Yeah.
all is said and done. So
Bloomberg
yeah,
estimated 76 billion when it's all
yep,
said. I
yep.
think, I'll just say this. I think there's, boy, I mean, I said before, you literally could go through like a 3-part series, mini series with how this negotiation, all this is going down. But I'll say this.
We,
When
we,
it
we
comes,
will definitely cover it more in full
yeah,
for sure. Oh,
right
Cleveland
now,
pulled ahead.
the debate right now, 1.2 is what I think, quote me if I don't know. If I'm incorrect, please clarify in this case. I think it's 2.2 billion per year is what TNT currently deals with right now. They had a negotiating period, they and Disney, so essentially for the end of the month, as far as like this past Monday. They exclusively had the rights to go and just work out a deal with the NBA. That did not come to fruition, obviously, and it went out to market then. At that point, it seems like NBA already had a deal in some form or fashion, be it if it was the matching number or not. To your point, that they wanted to have a streaming partner anyhow, so they were going to always have a three. It was always going to be 3-pronged attack. Two TV guys and a streamer. So they were working out the streaming deal already with Amazon. I think Apple was in there a little bit. There's reasons why I think Amazon's a bit better of the partner.
Mhm.
Netflix might have been kind of sniffing around a little bit, maybe for maybe it was a in play or a tournament in play tournament package. Maybe that was something that was ideal for something like a Netflix, which would make some sense for them. But Amazon makes a lot more sense because Amazon is ubiquitous when it comes to streaming.
Is the in-season tournament still
In season, I should say. They could technically carve out.
is it still potentially available?
That is what is something that we have not found out yet, where you could have
Right.
technically a fourth
Because
partner.
that would be interesting. Whereas like that goes to Netflix, and then you
Right.
have that other partner kind of
Yeah.
doing docu series and stuff like that. Kind of like The Last Dance, leading up to some of
Right.
these things.
So that one is interesting because that hasn't really been flushed out yet of where the in-season tournament plays into all this. Because there's been
Yep.
rumors you could carve it out as its own deal with somebody. But let's stick with what we know at the moment, and let's assume it's with one of the three, or the two partners and the potential third one as part of their deal. The TNT part of it obviously is what everyone's fascinated about. There's a lot of whining and crying on the app about, oh my gosh, what would happen inside the NBA and this and that. Look, man, I'm gonna make my point there. I made it on the app. I'm gonna make it on here so it's very clear. One, I think in this case here, overall, TNT does a good enough job with it. They are solid with it, especially on the part when they're actually doing the game, with the exception of Reggie Miller. Ugh. But besides that, everyone else, they got some of the best play-by-play guys in the game, no doubt. Harlan is arguably the best. I ain't even saying that. I know he is the best
Hmm.
in my mind. Spiro, pretty solid, and of course in this case, Iron Eagle, chef's kiss. Can't do nothing wrong with them. They got some nice young players. In this case, young players. I say young players because they're retired, obviously. The younger players, in this case, I say Grant Hill, Jimmy Jackson, and I think a budding star in this case, Jamal Crawford. He's fantastic. I hope next year, even if TNT gets it, they put him on that group, or if they happen to go to NBC, some of these guys, great. Problem I have in this case is the pregame, postgame, and the halftime show. And as I said before, I love me some EJ. I think Kenny does a really well job, professional job. But the other two guys, I think it's run its course in my mind. And the rationale is that there's 3 reasons why I think TNT is not good for the NBA at this point. One, you mentioned in this case, David Zaslav. He was at the Knicks game the other night. I found that interesting. Front row, making sure he's seen. I found that interesting. But he had some comments a couple of years ago where he's chopping everything in sight, every TV show and movie he could in sight. And then when they got to him about sports, And he asked about the NBA. He said, I think we can do without the NBA essentially. Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
So when you have a partner in this case from the NBA's perspective, you really can't trust of how that's the mindset they have. And then you got someone to speak to him a couple weeks later and say, "Oh no, no, we love the NBA." Probably they whisper in his ears like, "We don't have a channel. We don't have the NBA." And I said before, I might refer to this group in this case, Sports Media Watch podcast. Good podcast. If you want to understand the business of sports, and they said best in this case with those comments. Paraphrasing, essentially saying like there's certain sports that are primary sports that you need to have if you want to be a credible channel, and there's secondary sports. And the point they're saying is that if this were to happen to TNT, and it looks like it probably will happen, could the NHL be a primary sport? In other words, it's a sport that sets up your shows and all the other stuff you want to do. It helps advertisers, make a lot of money, yay, and sell beer and sell whatever. I don't think the NHL, with all respect, the NHL is a primary sport for any channel. I think it's great as a secondary sport, and you can use the NBA to play off to get people to watch the NHL, but it don't work in this case as a solo venture. Sorry, no respect, punkheads. It ain't the case. At least not in that country. In this country, sure, not in the States. So, and they got some MLB stuff too. So that to me is the second thing. Second problem I think with TNT is their cable, and we discussed the cable thing a bit. But for folks who don't understand, cable has been being degraded and downgraded for pretty much last 5 to 10 years. Subs, or what they refer to as subscribers, are dropping from everybody, from ESPN to you name it. So when you're TNT and you have a pretty much, you're not even like an ESPN that has a purpose of what their mandate is. They're about sports. There is no mandate for TNT. It's just TV shows pretty much, and then they have some sports that go with it. If there's no NBA and the numbers are already dropping, if I'm the NBA, I need to get as many eyeballs as I want to. And in this day and age, that means streaming and that means broadcast. There's no need for cable. And I think that's the biggest reason why I think they're more aggressive going with NBC. NBC has both of them. They have the streamer and Peacock. To your point, has done a really good job with documentaries and stuff like that, like EPL and wrestling. And they have obviously the broadcast with NBC.
And so, sorry, I just wanted to say, like, one of the important things about why the streaming is so important, why Amazon's such a good partner, is that Amazon's already in everyone's homes as a streaming thing. Everyone at this point, practically everyone has Amazon Prime in some way, shape, or form as a household. So
Right.
at that point, like, if you have Amazon, to get your toilet paper or whatever it is that you need to get, or, your household essentials, you have Amazon right now.
Right.
And even with them going into groceries, with them going into the pharmacy, like, this is just the next step,
But to
which is
your point,
entertaining.
though, and this is a great point to kind of tease out, the model that Amazon has is very different than the other streamers. You're not paying really the bulk of what you're paying for the service is, to your point, is for the shipping and the apps. The throw
Yeah.
in is the Prime.
Yeah.
That's the throw in.
And what's brilliant about this is that they also own the streaming platform as well, Twitch.
Right.
And so over time, this is the thing that I've been interested in is like, does that mean that Twitch streamers can now have, rights to broadcast the games and talk over the games? Because that's the thing for me that I find very interesting, because that opens up, both for revenue streams and stuff like that. For a channel, it does, but also just in terms of the watching experience as well.
Exactly.
Because, like, I don't know, maybe you like listening to us, but you want to see, or maybe you're listening to Nate Duncan, right?
Right.
And instead of having to watch it on playback and maybe someone gives you a free thing or whatever, it's like, no, we already own the thing. You don't have to give no free it's part of the package.
Right.
You just spend some extra time on Amazon.
Exactly. But you're reaching the people where they are, right? And that's the biggest thing, right? That's where we
Yeah.
already know the NBA is already perhaps of all the five, maybe with the exception of MLS, have the youngest demographic, right?
Yeah.
So like
Well,
if you got
I was also going to say, I know we don't have the time to get into this, but the interesting thing is from an advertiser standpoint, that's the easiest way to get directed ads that are also potentially less intrusive. It's like, oh, I saw that you're, the Amazon Alexa. Hey, I heard your your
Right.
drink's going low.
Exactly. Right. Amazon's selling everything
Let
Amazon, right?
Amazon fill that up for you, sir.
Exactly. Amazon's selling everything Amazon. You might
All
get
of a
some other stuff
sudden,
from Amazon, but they ain't
you
selling
know,
nobody else's product, man. They
the
sell it all.
robots outside the door,
Yeah. It's all the smile, man. Once you go there, if you watch the NFL package, that's all you getting, man. That's all you getting. You get the happy things. That's it.
yes.
The third point before we move on is maybe the
Mm,
point that's probably had people a little more perturbed with me. Let's put it that way on the app is that I
mm,
think that TNT over the course has become damaging to the brand, the NBA brand. And what I mean by that is when you have a halftime or a pre or post game show where it almost seems antagonistic to the product, that can't be helpful to the product. So we can't have Shaq and Chuck out here just kind of either just ridiculing, be it players, be it the game itself, be it coaches, and sometimes just acting as if in this case, okay, fine, you get a dud game sometimes. It happens for whatever reason, injuries, whatever the case may be. Maybe a team didn't perform the way we all thought. It happens in every sport. If you go compare how they approach bad games like that versus how, say, the NFL, as I said before, I think I might mention you or someone else. The Jets, big market, New York. The Jets in this case here had games this year where they thought they'll be a player because Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, that was not the case after about 3 plays. But the Jets are still on certain things. They don't go into it in this case disparaging the game. Their big game this year was Miami, New York Jets, Amazon, funny enough, on Good Friday. They went and sold the game like any other games. Like, come on, this is a big thing. Miami's got playoff aspirations, blah, blah. The Jets in this case trying to find their way with Zach Wilson. They didn't go in there trying to badmouth the game. And too many times Charles and Shaq specifically try to badmouth the game. And I said before, I've said it, I'm not trying to pick on just them because I think this is something that David Silver's been now trying. I'm sorry, Adam Silver. I almost call it David because I think it's Stern. Because now he's getting his Stern on now. Because believe me, Stern would never let some of this stuff slide. So the removal of Jeff Van Gundy, in my mind, was step one.
well, they were even so OKC is a perfect example of what happened where um really like they just at the end of their game they essentially just ignored the TNT broadcast crew. And it's like if you listen to some of the broadcasting that was going on, like Reggie Miller couldn't even pronounce Chet Holmgren's name. Holmgren. I'm sorry, I'm messing up myself, right? But Chet's name. And I think that in and of itself is why they're like, well, why are we gonna, yes, Allie, sorry, you will have to wait your turn.
Right, right.
Um, you
And
know,
that's your major broadcast partner you're having this type of relationship with. That shouldn't
mm,
happen. That shouldn't happen. When you got Shaq, pretty much don't even know who Pascal Siakam is. He just won a championship a couple of years ago and like a two-time All-Star, All-NBA player, and you don't even know. And
they
then
didn't even have Chet and J Dub being drafted in the same year.
right,
Um,
just basic knowledge. So when Kendrick Perkins rips on these guys a week ago, people can make fun of Kendrick Perkins. He's not the most eloquent guy. Fine, but I'll say this much about Kendrick Perkins: ain't no one can tell me Kendrick Perkins don't watch games. Kendrick Perkins be seeing everyone, and another thing Kendrick does, he gives props to a lot of teams in this case that don't get shine on ESPN. You know, be it the Raptors or the Sacramento Kings, or wherever, he'll be calling out teams in this case that are playing well and stuff like that. He's probably the only dude on national TV amongst the two partners that was there bigging up Minnesota all year in OKC. You know,
yeah.
like like at some point is like you can't have that in your partnerships. And if you watch other sports, you will notice how bad it is when you watch other sports where they don't do that.
What
So
surprises me, and we'll shift towards the second round soon, is I guess that certain people you would think that would or should understand seem to miss it. Like there's people that are sports fans of multiple different types of sports, watch these sports shows, and then they're still like, well, no, like the NBA is this and that, the TNT, the NBA. It's almost like people want to create division. I was thinking about it the other day. There's certain things that I will and won't say on my show, but in terms of the dynamics that I think that people play into, and
mhm.
people are like, oh, well, back in the day, the players didn't like each other. It's like, is that really the case in a lot of other sports though? Not really, now that I think about it,
No, right. And
right?
I no. I probably watch more sports than you. I tell you right now, there's
Yeah.
only two sports I can think of where this past versus present issue is an issue: basketball and, quite honestly, cricket.
And
Those,
even well, even not even just past versus present, even just like within the league, like sure, there's always rivalries, but there's like it's not like back in the day where it's like two guys just really don't like each other all the time in the same like way. I mean
Mhm.
I where it's like antagonized on I mean I just feel like, and I said this to you before. I said part of this is like the labor movement has a big part of it when players start unionizing and working together. And then it's like,
Mhm.
brothers, let's stick together
Right,
for the greater
exactly.
good.
Right. And I think,
So yeah,
and I think that's the thing. I mean, just one point going back to broadcast versus cable. Brad Gilbert about a month ago was asked to interview, like, how can we grow the sport of tennis? Brad Gilbert was a
mm,
top 10 player for American. Some people like know him better. In this case, he coached Agassi to major Grand Slams. They think he's coaching Coco right now. And he said one of the problem, and he's on broadcast TV. He's on ESPN as a broadcast as a broadcaster. And he said, "Listen, man," he goes, "growing up, and I know it's even that long ago. You can go up to the '90s. Tennis was on broadcast TV all the time. Every major tournaments. The Wimbledon was on NBC. CBS had the U.S. Open. The French Open finals and semifinals were on NBC. You can't find except for the championship, maybe men's and women's for Wimbledon on ABC. That's it now. CBS used to have all the stuff on thing. That's now outsourced to ESPN. ESPN now has the deal for that now for the U.S. Open. You know, those things hurt, and he says that hurts us as a brand or as a sport because right now we don't have people watching broadcasts as much as you have. And this man works for ESPN saying so. So, folks, I'm not saying this out of thin air, folks. There's other
I
sports.
mean, I mean, there's so much to talk. I mean, one of the things I was even just thinking about is like the importance of why, people always want to get rid of like, CBC or in the States PBS and
Rabbit
NPR,
ears, man.
right? And it's like, but they don't think of the downstream effects of getting rid of those things. So you do need publicly funded like media at some level, right? Ideally, it's not, whatever, too biased or whatever. But in general, usually, especially in the Western world, you know, publicly funded stuff, usually even just because of their own integrity, they at least try to maintain some sort of semblance of it. And it's important educationally and otherwise. We don't have time to get into it, but I think points well made. We will tackle this as an ongoing thing throughout the summer because
Mhm.
we need summer content. And B, it is quite interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's huge news. Yeah, like it's gonna have
yes,
ramifications across the sports world.
I actually don't see it being talked about enough, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, because right now, to your point, that it requires nuance, and in this world we live in, folks need to look at the nuance. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And it's got
True.
numbers, and people don't like math.
Yes, that is also true. So, this is my public service announcement about education, math, and it's important, people. It's important, folks. At least the table, the what is it? The napkin math. All right, so let's quickly look at the second round. So some of actually, to be honest, most of the stuff we actually got right in terms of you know, um, all of our predictions. And when
One
coach
right
comes
now,
back,
hanging in the balance right now.
yes, exactly, yeah. So yeah. Well, so coach will get one back. So first of all, we'll start in the West. The Thunder and the Mavs are going to face off against one another, and then of course we have the Timberwolves versus the Nuggets. They've already played one game. I think we'll talk about that in a second, and then obviously in the East, there's two matchups left before we get to the obviously the conference finals. You have the Celtics versus TBD right now. And that right now Cleveland is up, but it is still a close game, and we will see if the Magic get it together or they don't get it together. And then you obviously have the Pacers and the Knicks. So, is there anywhere you want to start? Otherwise, I'm going to start with your team.
I mean, I think in this case here, SGA is going to have more opportunity to maneuver more in this series than the previous series.
That's
Um,
exactly what I was thinking about yesterday.
but in a way, I'm not sure if that's going to be any more helpful because I think when I look at the other matchups, I just wonder like if in this case here, if Luka is just putting down 30 a night pretty much against these dudes, the Clippers, who have some personnel that gives
They
it
do.
in theory that should be giving him more of an issue.
Then they do have defensive personnel.
Right. What is he gonna do with these dudes? Okay, that's what I'm sitting there going. Then you have the Kyrie scenario.
You're right.
I suspect Casey Wallace might, and maybe they might put Lou Dort on him first for all you know. I don't think Lou Dort's a good matchup for Kyrie.
I think it's Kaysen. It has to be.
It has to
Because
be.
I think Lou Dort, if you look at the series matchup in this season,
Yeah.
it was Lou Dort on Luca, which makes more sense because he has more. Uh, you don't want to risk Lou Dort running out of steam and gas chasing around Kyrie specifically.
Right. Right. Exactly. So I think those matchups I think are not favorable for OKC. Even if it's Wallace, it's not favorable for OKC. I think Wallace will do a decent job on him, but
Yeah,
I, I don't think he's
I mean,
stoppable.
like
Yeah.
I love Casey Wallace, but
But
he's a
that
rookie.
ain't happening.
He is literally a rookie.
Right. And then the
Though he's
other
holding his own.
he's hold no, yeah, he'll have his moments, but I don't think that's happening. And then the second part is Dallas's front court is going to give them some problems, man. Because I think right now, the lively Holmgren matchup is going to be really something to watch, right? Like that's going to be fun to watch. I know. I think they actually played each other in college. Actually, I think in this case here too. I think so. It will be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, because to me, I almost think the winner of that matchup helps win the series for the team. Because even if Lively holds his own with Holmgren, to me that's a win for Dallas.
Right.
Right. Now, the X factor for OKC that I'm not sure about, and this is the part I'm mulling over, I'm not sure how this is going to play out, is your man. Because he could be the guy in this series if OKC wins this. If he goes off in this series, which I think there is a possibility that could happen. Because I ain't sure who's checking him in Dallas. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Also, I don't think that they played just because they were different draft years, and he was definitely a freshman. I
Okay.
know it's weird with the Chet. This is basically Chet's first year, even
First
though
year,
it's
yeah,
not
I
his
keep
first
forgetting
year.
Chet's first year because he's actually 2 years, yeah. But
Yeah.
like going back to but Williams, I don't know who's the matchup for Dallas to kind of deal with him.
Yeah, so I was gonna say Williams to me they can because sometimes they put him at the four at times
Mhm.
if they need to, and then Giddy. I think that this is a series that Giddy kind of like
Well, Giddy, yeah,
goes to the wayside.
yeah. Giddy's gonna be on a milk carton by about game two. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so that's whatever. But I think look, there's no stopping Luca and there's no stopping Kyrie. I think you can slow them down and make it difficult for them as much as you can, and that's what you hope for. It's like Shea. You're not really stopping Shea, right? You're just hoping to kind of slow him down. I think to your point, in terms of the perimeter defense, they have a lot more room to kind of literally run with. And I think that benefits Shea. And I think Shea is very smooth as in terms of how he operates on the court, getting to his spots, and he just plays at his pace. Well, Luca does that too, but just in a very different way. I think also for me, the front court is not as big of an issue because I think that Chet defensively is a lot better than maybe he gets credit for. And this goes back
No,
to the Slenderman point.
yeah, it's not even so much my point's not that. It's just like Dallas's front court comes in waves now, right?
That's
Like,
true. There's depth.
there's depth, so like he's gonna have fresher bodies on him all the time.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting there going like, okay, after Chet, you're going to the other Williams, and what else? Now,
right.
Cleveland being hurt does help because now
Like
kind
it's
of
like
a little even.
Biombo.
Yeah, he's right. Exactly. And now I'm cheating off all over the place. Now I'm cheating off of guys.
Yeah. Yeah, they're Chet is gonna have to play a lot in this series,
Yeah.
and there's no hiding him or anything like he's gonna be. But like yeah, to the point of managing minutes at that point, I think that yeah, Dallas has an advantage from that standpoint. But in terms of skill, I mean, it really comes down to me is how good can PJ Washington be defensively? Because defensively, he's had trouble at times throughout his career, and
Mhm.
I think that Chet is a much more difficult guy to guard than people give him credit for. I mean, we saw it with Valanciunas. He can stretch the floor out for sure, but also he has the agility to get around guys,
Mhm.
and that's I think where the key thing is that his footwork is super improved this year, and so to me that is one of the keys. Shea is going to be Shea. I think Jalen Williams is going to be Jalen Williams. I'm not trying to say which duo is better. I would probably give the edge to Luka and Kyrie offensively. But I think as an individual talent, I think Shea's the best player in the series, in my opinion.
Really?
Yes, yes. I mean, we saw in summer.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the 40, 50 burgers in this case here that this guy's averaging like higher scoring percentage than Jordan. I don't know if you remember that dude.
True. Yes.
And
No,
only taking
I'm saying in this series. In this series.
in this series, I know. I last
Yeah.
time I checked, I know
Well,
this guy
okay. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
number
But I mean,
77.
listen. At the same time, the Clippers had like obviously James Harden is not the most best stout defender. You had the two other guys, one being hobbled, and the other guy is probably tired from having to carry the hobbled guy half the time.
I just say in this case here, one guy's taking this team to the Western Conference Finals, and the other guy now just got around two. That's all I
True.
got. All
That's
right, that's
true.
all.
His team half got serious for once, but yeah, true, true,
You
true.
know, so I just know there's been no scoring machine I've seen in this case in this league, and I'm including my man because I'm a LeBron dude. But there's been
Yeah.
no scoring machine for that stamp I've seen since Michael Jordan that can score the ball as easily as Luka Doncic. And I wish Oklahoma City tried to slow him down.
Yeah.
And for his standards, he's averaged 30 at the Clippers, and that was subpar.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But hey, we will see. We will see.
Yeah.
Shay's
So
been doubted before.
yeah, I mean, I like
I have
SG.
OKC in 7.
I got Dallas in 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Fair
think
enough.
I think this. I think another problem that OKC has is how deep you think OKC is going to go.
I mean, at the wings, because like Gordon Hayward can actually still, he could be serviceable still at times, and that's really what he's about. So, how many minutes can he buy you when you have to hide like effectively like Giddy defensively? That's really what it comes down to from the OKC side. From the well, wait a minute. Question. I didn't ask you. Kleber or Kleba is out. Your thoughts on that in terms of an impact?
It'll have some impact from the standpoint of having more depth.
By the way, I think this game is a wrap.
Yeah, from depth and depth, it's getting close to it. Depth and weapons. Yeah, Cleveland's gonna hurt because I would like to have one big. I always like to have one. I mean, the only thing is if this team was pre PJ Washington be on it, this would be a bigger issue. But I think PJ Washington, quite honestly, is the better player. So that means more minutes for him. I don't think that's necessarily bad. So I don't get me wrong. I think Cleveland can provide some more depth just to have more guys at Chet.
I would also argue he's probably a bit of a better defender, than
Washington.
I would say so. Yeah, if you look at like their careers and stuff like that. Yeah,
career wise, but on this team right now, I mean, I've seen Washington play defense I didn't know existed for him, man. Probably
that's
since
true.
Kentucky. defense
That's
like
true.
that. Sometimes those guys are just like in the wrong spot. And
Yeah.
everyone thinks they're a lousy defender is like, no, man, they're just tired of the losing, man. They're
True.
tired of the losing. And then all of a sudden you get on a team where it's like, oh, these guys actually want to try. And then they start wanting to try. So
You could almost pivot that into the Raptors discussion, but we won't today.
Go there with that. I'm just leaving that on the sideline. Put that out there. But yeah, so we'll see. I think it's a really fun series. Because I think to your point, I think Giddey gets play off the floor in this series.
Yep.
I think there is a possibility Lou Dort could get play off the floor in the series because if he can't hit threes, he can be open for a lot of them, and that could be problematic.
Maybe not, because if you have enough of an offense sustained through the other two guys, we'll say actually other three guys to be fair, with Chet and J Dub as well as Shea, I think that you might risk it with him just having like a physical force out there, a worst case scenario.
Yeah, I just see a scenario that could play out. Not saying it will. He shot decently so far, but like I can see a scenario where they just lay off a Dort and say, "Here, beat me, Dort."
Yeah.
Now Dort might end up getting 25. We saw that a few years back in a Game 7 when he was with Chris Paul in SGA, the first year they did, and that was one of the best games I've ever seen him play. Actually, he was all over the place, and he was hitting everything in sight. But that was the bet in this case. I think they're playing Houston that series. I think that's the bet they made.
Yes.
Beat us. And that might be Dallas's theory, kid. Lou Dort, have at it. Take as
Now,
many shots you want.
Now I'm partially trying to stall to see if we could actually get to the
Yeah, I
to the end
know.
of this game to see.
Okay, so
So
let's
going to the
next.
next
Okay.
matchup. So we both, you're saying 6 Dallas, I'm saying 7 OKC. All right, we've talked about the different things. Next series. Already the next series that we're going to talk about. There's been first blood drawn, and so at least so to speak. And that would be the Timberwolves. Now a lot of people were tweeting me before and saying, hey, you know what? Who's going to guard Jokic? I'm like, you know what? Gobert's going to do the best that he can. Can't stop him, but you slow him down. You see what you can do. But at the same time, is Jokic ready to turn it up? Because that Denver team seems to, be a little lethargic these days coming off. They're not, full of vim and vigor as a
Well,
defending championship team. Just gonna put that out there. So, and both of us, I think, were thinking the same thing going into this series, which is the other team has a dude, and that dude wants the crown. He doesn't, I'm not saying the other team doesn't have a dude. It's just you have someone who's hungry, and who's a hungry man, and he's playing angry. A hungry man is an angry man.
last night, I've said it previously on this same show when we did MVP discussion. And I said it then. I said, you people, it was like, forgot about Dre. You all forgot about Ant. Like, seriously, I said, folks, this man should be in MVP talks. By the way, Kendrick Perkins agreed with me in this case. I had to give him a shout out. Like, you people are missing out. You all asking for trouble. And we on the Get Back tour right now, man. That's what we are, man. You're on the Get Back tour. And the Ant-Man is taking no prisoners. And now all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh. He's like, no. This was the deal from time. And the Ant-Man in this case is taking no prisoners. And I said it before, right now, there is nobody on Denver. They have to deal with him, right? And this goes to a discussion that I put this post out today. And you're seeing it throughout the playoffs, and you see it every year. But I think it's even getting more apparent in these playoffs because everyone's pretty even for the most part. And sometimes it comes down to the athletes because everyone's going to be on their best P's and Q's, and no one's going to try to make as many mistakes. So you're going to have less of that. And then it comes down to like, is your dude better than my dude? And sometimes, a lot of times, there's 50-50 plays or just pure athletic gifts come into play in certain situations. And you're seeing it a lot of times in these games. I think in this case, you saw a lot, even this Orlando series, Orlando looks like they might go out in this case here. But Ankara was such an issue for them in this case from just athletic standpoint of strength and speed that they really had no one to match up with him.
And I'll just add that it's not even because like you can have the strength and the speed, but it's also being able to control it.
Right, exactly, right. And you saw it even with the Pacers series, man. I mean, that's the most apparent one. Milwaukee, there were like statues out there. Like, you can't get away. I don't care how bright, how savvy your team is. If you don't have enough athletes to go with that, you're going to pay the price. Either the Lakers, the same thing in this case here. AD, no problem. The athleticism for sure. He played fantastic. LeBron still has quite a bit of athleticism. But once you got past them and to, even someone like Reeves, who has athleticism, I'm not saying that. He's actually quite athletic in this case here.
Yes.
But the problem was in this case, his athleticism wasn't enough to overcome what Denver had. Denver's athletes were just better. When you deal with Porter Jr., to some extent, Will Murray and stuff like that, those guys in the wing, even KCP, it was just too much for him to deal with. And D'Lo is not the most athletic guys people think. He's shifty, but he ain't really an athlete that we're talking about. So you start seeing that, it starts to get folks. In this series here, there's no one that got to guard Ant-Man. They got no athlete to deal with him.
The other thing too that's just so impressive about it that people don't think about it is this: you're playing mile high up, thin atmosphere. They have that home court advantage. They just lost that home court advantage. So that's big.
Yes, because Denver sports teams notoriously are great home teams. Usually gets pretty shaky on the road. That's all I'm saying. It gets pretty shaky on the road. That's all I got to say with Denver sports teams over the years. It gets shaky on the road. Now, what I love about the Ant-Man, and one part I'll get to with Jokic, how they're defending him. Well, I'll say with Ant-Man, it's not just the athleticism, because that's actually not doing the man a disservice. The skill set of what he's doing, folks. I don't know how many times I got to tell you all, and thank God the Ant-Man don't listen to you knuckleheads out there, man. Let me tell you something. My man here work on his craft and work on that mid-range all offseason. That thing now, he can do that closing his eyes. Do not go under the screen, folks. I just proceed with caution. Do not go into the screen, Denver. You will pay the price. You will pay the price.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I got to say. And last point on that, Finch, well done. Because everyone's expecting a Gobert Jokic battle. And I love the fact you put Cat on him and to some point Nas Reed and had Gobert just wait in the wings. Therefore,
I
Jokic
love that.
twice, and he's mixing it up on Jokic, which you got to do with a guy that's that great.
Yes. I mean it, and Denver's gonna punch back. I don't have anything to really go back and forth on because we largely agree on everything with this series.
On this
But
too. Timber
I
yeah,
I
Timber.
have Minnie in six. That is what I'll say.
I mean, I might have to refer to them now as the actual Timber Wolves, man. For years, I've been calling them Timber Puppies. Because they ain't graduate the wolfdom yet. So I might start
Yes.
calling the Timber Wolves. I will say so with my chest out. Timber Wolves in 6.
Okay. Okay. So and we move on to the Eastern Conference matchup that we do know
Battle
of.
of the X Raps.
Yes, the Battle of the X Raps. This has been the Battle of the H's. I'll tell you who I'm rooting for, and I'll tell you who I think is going to win, because I think that those are two different things. But I do think that this is going to be a longer series than people think. I think that the series is going to go the distance. I really do think that it's going to go 7 games because there's a lot on the line. For New York, really, in a sense, they put a lot. They traded a lot of guys. They traded guys that were kind of had been in battles with them, and they got OG. That has worked out for them really well. They also got Precious, of course, but I think that people think that this is going to just be OG versus Siakam, and that's it, and that OG somehow gonna steamroll Siakam or teach Siakam a lesson or some nonsense like that. This is what I've seen and all this kind of nonsense. I do not think that it's gonna go like that. First of all, they've been playing one on one in practice. They know each other. Um, you know, I don't know if that's gonna necessarily be the matchup. I think that as New York, if you're Tibbs, you might pull the same kind of strategy that you did in the last series, where at times OG might be the primary on Halliburton. That's where things get interesting
Hmm.
for me.
Okay, so let me play out your scenario. If you put OG on Halbert, who's checking Siakam?
The problem is that Siakam doesn't initiate the offense there, and so we've seen them struggle to initiate their offense and get the ball in the post and know what to do.
True, but I think what you open up the possibility to if you put OG on Halliburton, then you have the opportunity of Siakam initiate the offense and just coming down, just posting up a guy.
Yeah, so it really depends on how stubborn is Carlisle. If Carlisle is faster at making the adjustments, and at times I think he was also trying to teach lessons in the last series when it's like, okay, now we're in the playoffs, dude. We're not trying to teach lessons right now. I think that you could see fast adjustments, and I think you could see Siakam really bust this thing wide open. Because there's only really, I mean, Hartenstein on Siakam is not
That's
a
yeah.
good idea.
No, they don't have anyone else. That's why I'm trying to ask you because they have no one else to play him besides OG,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
but you understand why I'm making that case.
I get your rationale, but I think you're almost playing a dangerous game by doing so because you're opening up in my mind, the more dangerous possibility.
Yeah,
I'd rather take my chances and have Josh Hart because in this case here, Halliburton hasn't proven yet. He's still a guy that wants to shoot jump shots. So I can still have Hart chase him around and see if he actually gets shots off on Hart. Then because he's not a post up guy yet. Now I did see some stuff late in the series where he started trying to take it to the hoop, which is one thing, but I think it still plays in the Knicks' strengths.
the
You
other
know,
thing is Miles Turner.
well, yeah, that's the other problem, right? Because that's the other problem that if you
He
take
hasn't
your
had any problems hitting his shots,
no,
so we'll just say that.
right, because if you take your scenario and OG plays out there at Halliburton, then I do what I counter down. I now have post up with Siakam. The big that you're talking about can't come over if Turner's out the 3-point line, and now you open up doubles from everywhere, which opens
Yeah,
up the three
but the
point
problem
team.
is on you still got to go back to the other end. Can they defend?
Who Indiana? I think they could defend. I think they could defend well enough with this group that they'll have timely shots because I think their defense. I know everyone killing their defense. Their defense has been improving as the
It has
season.
improved. It has improved.
People think this is
And
November.
realistically, like there's no reason why it shouldn't. They have enough personnel to at least defend at an average rate if
Yeah,
everyone's locked in.
exactly. So like I think this the size factor of the Knicks is going to start coming into play because the size they got away with Philadelphia because of no disrespect to Embiid, he's 7'1", plays about 6'2",
Yeah.
right? Right. So like so he's able to get away doing that. I don't know if Josh Hart's going to be out here climbing and getting 15 boards on Indiana.
No, and in terms of the wings, I'm not saying that New York doesn't have big wings. Obviously, there's Hart and there's OG,
Hart's
but
not
then
big. Hart's only 6'4".
that's what I was gonna say. Like Hart plays bigger than his size, which is nice. But like if you have the right matchup to take advantage of that, because if you put Hart on Siakam, that's also not a good idea. So really, it's only OG on Siakam, and that's gonna be a key matchup. And then the other on the flip side. And the other thing too is like if you double Siakam, you're opening yourself up to passing because again, he can pass out of those doubles. He knows how to make those reads again and again and again and again. Like he's been doing that for 2 years in a row.
He's been more than that. Yeah, I hear you though.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah,
So
but like as a primary for sure.
what's the Knicks' advantage now? Like who's dealing with Brunson? Because that is the issue. Because Brunson right
Brunson, I think is really offensively the key because I think a lot of people think that like OG and it's like OG's still like a third, fourth option at best, and I say third option at best. At times when he's on the floor.
now.
I mean, he's had really good games. So
Yeah,
like full
he's like
respect
the
to him.
third option in my mind, the Knicks team right now. He's
But
like
like you look at who's like taking those the with Randall out, it's mainly Hart stepping up,
it's the
right?
Nova crew. That's who's
Yeah,
taking shots. The Nova
yeah,
game.
yeah.
As my dad
So
wrote said about that, but nonetheless, that's who's doing it. So, okay, so do you think they're going to do? I think it's actually the wise decision, which is to put the press Brunson up 90 feet like they did with Lillard.
um, I just don't know if they have that level of discipline to do it from the jump.
Well, they kind of did it with Milwaukee pretty well. They
They didn't
wore
do it from game one, like 48 minutes, like Nick Nurse
no,
style.
but they did it enough between Nakano and Nemhart.
Yeah.
It's really the starting line they don't do it with. But once that bench comes in,
Yes. Yes.
they're going after it. And Brunson
But they
is not
kind of have to do that to kind of like, maintain some sort of
well.
semblance of balance.
This is where things are going to get interesting for Tibbs. How short does Tibbs' bench get? And can it get much shorter at this point? He's
Uh,
playing.
he,
He's playing. What now? Last year
he is playing precious.
He played. Well, he played Precious only because of the injury to Mitchell that game.
Yes.
So if you assume it, Robinson obviously played. So if I look at the second unit, it's Robinson, McBride, and who's the third guy I'm forgetting off the team? Because now Bogey's out now, right? That was their eighth guy at the time. So who's the
Yeah.
other guy they're playing? Who the hell is the other guy? I feel like I'm forgetting someone else in the guards. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting?
I Dante.
No. Yeah, DiVincenzo. Yeah, he's a start, right? He starts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember if he
Oh,
starts or
he's
not.
starting for them right. No, it's OG. It's OG playing power forward essentially with Hartenstein,
And
Brunson,
Hart. And
Hart,
Hart.
and DiVincenzo.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Sorry.
yeah.
There's so many like guys on that damn
Yeah, that's what I'm
roster.
saying. So when it's all said and done, they're playing essentially seven guys at the moment with McBride and Mitchell. I don't think because Bogdanovich is out. He was the eighth guy. I mean, Precious may get minutes in the series. I don't think that would be wise.
He probably will get minutes, but I don't
That
know
would
how
be a
many.
dangerous prospect for Precious to get minutes. How this team pushes the ball and whips it around. Precious could get lost on assignment if
I would like Precious to play.
He's actually the only guy in this case, at least, to give you some time off to play Seattle.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think he'll have his moments, because he's got the athleticism to have his moments. He's about the same size, but the discipline with Precious is always an issue, and I think that's where he might get in trouble from a foul standpoint.
I think it's going to be a 7-game series, just so you know.
I think so. So I will go. I think I'm like you. Oh, man, the Knicks play hard, but there's certain things, but something about the Knicks is bugging me.
Yeah, like
But
you
then
don't think
also,
that they can go the distance, basically.
I just think that it's running out guys, man. And how the pace of how Indiana plays, I just think like you're
Let me
asking.
put it this way: if the Knicks don't put it away early, Like the Knicks' best situation with this series is a shorter series, especially with how Tibbs just will run these guys into the ground. So
Agreed.
like the shorter the series, if they can make it like a 5-6 game series, you give
Mhm.
the advantage to the Knicks.
Well, I don't think they
I
want
think if
six.
it's a if you, once you get into a 6 game series and it's a longer series, like sometimes it's a 6 game series, but it's a short 6 game series, versus like you have yeah, you get my point. 7 game series. I think the closer you get to a 7 game series, the advantage now starts to shift. It's almost like the Embiid effect, but like on a whole team,
Yeah.
where the
No,
team just gets run
exactly.
out.
Yeah. I think, you know what? I think the more you
And
talk me
and
into
also
it,
Brunson, to be perfectly honest, and I mean he played phenomenally, but like he also at times wasn't really like he kind of had somewhat of a subpar like thing against like subpar guards
well, that's the other thing too, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of length, like in this series, if he
like
switches onto a
Nemhard.
big, right? Like, I so assume Neesmith will get the assignment on him. If he switches
You
onto a
wouldn't put
big,
Nemhard on him? Nemhard's
possibly.
6'5".
Yeah, but I think I kind, you know what? Yes, I could. Yeah, I'll put Nemhard on him. But this is the point, right? If you do a switch now, you get Neesmith. That ain't really easy. If you get a switch now, you get Siakam. That's not really
Yeah. People will
fantastic.
argue and say that Siakam's a cone, but they don't watch basketball,
No,
so
no,
I'll
no,
just
no,
leave it
no,
at
no,
that.
no, no. I watched in this case they try to do switches and Lillard tried a few times. Like, no, I ain't having none of this. Swing it back up the top of the key and try again. They almost never switched on to Siakam when he had pick and roll. They take a chance with Miles Turner. Obviously they get they'll get Halliburton for switches for sure. That's who you want.
100%.
So Halliburton's the one they're going to want to attack in my mind. But if they get anybody else, especially those second units with Siakam, those second units, that will be fascinating to see how Brunson attacks those. But I think you talked me into it. Pacers in 6, man. I think you
Yeah,
talked me
I
into it.
I mean I kind of also talked myself into it, but I'm gonna say Pacers in 7.
Boy, I don't know who's gonna
I
win.
started out with the Knicks.
Yeah, I just don't see the winner game the Garden in 7, man. I don't know.
Oh, you're right.
I don't see it, man. That's why I have to say Pacers in 6. If I go 7, I'm going Knicks.
I
But no,
forgot about it being in the Garden if it's in
yeah,
the same
man.
division.
That's like,
Okay.
I don't. I mean, Siakam will have probably no problem, but and Turner just don't
No, no,
fit.
I mean he had 56
Yeah,
in the Garden.
yeah. The quote. See, LeBron a little bit. I've been in tougher situations.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I mean we will definitely see. This is a really fascinating matchup. And also we now have a winner for
Dude,
the next one.
yeah,
Unfortunate,
yes.
but because I was really rooting for the underdog here, but they made it a 7 game series. And I think, obviously they have room to grow in the off season. We'll talk about the series first that's upcoming for the Cavs because they are the winner, and then we could talk briefly about our Orlando. So we'll make this part just a little shorter because I know you have to go and I have to go as well pretty soon because as I am keeping track of the time. So it will be the Celtics versus the Cavs. I'll be honest, if it was the Magic, I'd be saying something different. I'm taking the Celtics. I just think that the Cavs don't have the same. They don't have wing stoppers at all. Like it's like I'm sorry.
Celtics,
Like
gentlemen sweep or whatever. Celtics in 5, man.
yeah, I think if it was the Magic, I would say I'd still probably lean towards the Celtics, but I'd say Celtics in 7.
Yeah, yeah, that one's gonna be a fun matchup. This one, little,
Yeah.
it's a little flattened for me, man. So, yeah, Boston in 5, man. I give them one game.
Yeah, and they have like Derek White. They just Derek White and Drew Holiday are gonna not make it easy for Garland and Mitchell. And then Mobley is kind of like at times finding himself, at times not. By the way, Raptors fans, I know some of you are trolling and some of you aren't trolling. Cleveland is not going to trade Mobley. Okay, they're just not gonna happen.
Well, here's the
It-
thing, too, man. This is a series he could get right a little bit because
yes,
Porzingis' injury, we're not sure what that status is.
true.
And but the problem they have though with Cleveland is they don't necessarily go to their front court, so they can't expose the injury really.
No, and now's not the time to start.
Right.
that
Also, we're
type of
feeding
thing.
him 20 shots a game.
It's like, have at her. Like it's not the time. I mean, Nurse might experiment. Like in a
No,
pinch,
no.
she's like, you know what, a win's a win.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, man, that ain't happening, man. So,
JB Bickerstaff, I don't know if he's that type of coach. So yeah.
yeah.
So I think yeah.
Might
I
just save this job, but I'll just move on from that.
I'll also say just the way that like Cavs fans are talking, like they're talking like this entire series. They're like, can we just get the series over and done with? Because like, can they just beat us? Because we're done.
I've never heard anything quite like that before in my life for a fan
It
base.
it
Like,
was wild where they're just like, I'm just ready to lay down
lay
and die.
down, man. It's like, wow,
It's like
wow.
it's game one.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Yeah, man.
I
On
thought
that,
Raptors fans were bad. It's
I
just
know.
like,
On that
dude,
note, wow.
it gets better.
For real.
So yeah, in terms of Orlando, really quickly, you hear the rumors, which I like, they're young and stuff like that, but they're hungry. They want to get better. They want to compete. They're talking about going for Paul George. They're talking about going, potentially, you could hear the name Klay Thompson there. I think both of which would be potentially good. There's other teams as well because Philly also, of course, is in their offseason as well, who could get one of those two guys. My question is, out of those two guys, do you see either of them going to the Magic or the 76ers?
Um, Paul George, the Philly, is actually something real serious. I think
I think so too.
that could make some serious sense because I would actually move Embiid down to a third option if Paul George were got in there.
Yeah.
Um, I think on the other side of things, Klay Thompson's a nice little pickup for Orlando because he kind of fits in where they don't adjust any of the hierarchy, and he gets. I mean, based on the, I mean, we are. I mean, I say it all day. I've been saying it all week. I've been saying it all season, man. Paulo is a dude, and he commands the double. You
And they
know, and
just really need another guy that's there based on like just so people know. So Paulo had 38 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists because he probably would have had more, but again, Franz was 1 of 15. I'm not trying to dog no. I'm just saying what the stats are. 2 of 13 for Suggs. So his teammates, Wendell Carter Jr., who people told me who couldn't play, was 5 of 10, so he showed up. But I think it really comes down to the other two guys. Now, the other two guys will be okay. This is a learning lesson, so on and so forth. I think giving Suggs, this is where I argue with people where it's like, Suggs, I think, became very three happy, just judging by the numbers, 10 threes, and 2 of 10 from three. That's, and 13 shots in total.
to be fair to Suggs, though, is it because the personnel that Orlando has? Like, he's not really there's not a lot of place to maneuver when you have that many bigs out there.
No, and that's why he got a lot. He got to the line 5 times, although Paolo got to the line 18 times.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
But but again, I just think that for them, they need another guy who's kind of been in the trenches and who's not afraid in the moment to help them to get like a bucket. And that's
But how
really
many
what
of
it
those,
comes down
right? But
to.
how many of those threes were kickouts? Right. That's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna wait because
Yeah, yeah,
talking right
yeah.
now, but
Well, I'm
like
saying,
I def well, one of the things that I actually do after is like I look at these things.
yeah,
I go possession by possession and I look at like, okay, how many of these were kickouts, bailouts, etc., etc.
right,
But all in all, I still like, again, if you move Gary, I mean, just let Gary Harris expire
right.
essentially, and put Klay Thompson in that role. That's a good fit for Klay Thompson. That's a perfect fit.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't
You
demand
know,
the ball. His defense has slipped a bit, but with this team, it will.
their defense is not the problem.
Right, they can cover up any mistakes that he happens to do, but he'll still be fundamentally sound. And he just got knocked down shots. That's all Klay Thompson want to do at this point in his career: knock down shots. And if he's
Yep.
got the Gary Harris role and he's knocking down shots, all of a sudden a
Yes.
game like today looks very different.
Yeah, and then also you can shift some of the shots away from Paolo. Not because, but like you don't want a dude to have to take 28 shots in a game every single game just to will you, through.
Right, but
Like,
what happened the second half of the game? Right, they doubled him, which
yeah,
forced more of these threes that you're talking about. And
which
you
would
win
open things up for Klay Thompson.
exactly right, right? Because it's like they pretty much thought, it was what they did is what Doc did the year with Siakam. First half, he said, okay, let's see how this game's going to go. And then Siakam was like torturing him. It was a 1 point game at halftime. And then he hit the break glass in case of emergency and said, I'm blitzing on everything. Let someone else beat me. And that's essentially what
Yeah.
he said.
Yeah,
That's
people
the
forget though, but that yeah. With that being said, I think we covered everything. I think you gotta go, I gotta go. So that is a pod, people. Probably a pod and a half to be honest, because we covered a lot more of the TV stuff than I thought we would. So yeah. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe. Give us your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win each of the series? We could be wrong. So far, we've been pretty good except for this matchup. You never know. Maybe Boston loses to a gentleman's sweep. We've seen stranger things. With that being said, yeah, take care, everyone, and peace.